I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of Genoa Township Trustees. Today's date's March 11th, 2025. The time is 6:30 p.m. A full and accurate account of this meeting's video and audio can be found at www.genoatwp.com. Roll call.
Trustee Goodman?
Here.
Trustee Vaughn?
Here.
Trustee Antonetts?
Yes. Also with us this evening is Donna Batten, Assistant Fiscal Officer, HR, Chief McMillan, Lauren Fitzpatrick, Chief Joe Ponzi is not here now. No.
Parent Teacher Conference.
Joe Schaefer, Director of Zoning and Development, Leslie Strader, Director of Communications and Events, Paul Wise, Township Administrator, and Corey Weekly, Fire Battalion Chief. This time we'd stand for Pledge Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first item on the agenda, Police Chief.
Good evening, Board, and thank you for letting us put this item up in the front of the agenda. Tonight, I'm going to respectfully request a resolution to hire Lance Ward. But before I request that resolution, I'd like to give just a little bit of a background about Lance and where he comes from. So Lance was raised in the area, and he and his wife moved away to Texas, where he ended up becoming a police officer in Austin, Texas for a few years. After Lance and his wife, Morgan, had a couple of children, they decided that they wanted to come back and be closer to home. So sometimes I think the grandparents have a little bit to do with that. He had the two children, Stetson and Rowan, and decided that they wanted to come back and be closer to home, where Lance was hired on with Columbus Police Department. After Lance worked for two larger cities, he decided that he was looking for a department that had more of a connection with the community and allowed him to do the police work that he was interested in. And after doing some research, he found Genoa, and we know that there's no better department with their community than us. So Lance has successfully completed all phases of our background check, and we believe that he'd be a great fit for the township. So tonight, I'm going to respectfully request a resolution to hire Lance Ward as a police officer with a starting salary of $37.92, which is our step C, which would be equivalent to 2 years' experience at Genoa. And Lance has about 4 between Austin and Columbus. Now, that is in accordance with the officer's contract.
Thank you. I move to hire Lance Ward as a full-time police officer effective March 17, 2025 at the C step of $37.92 per hour per the collective bargaining agreement. Do I have a second?
Second. Sorry. Go ahead. Time out.
Discussion? None?
Trustee Goodman?
Yes.
Trustee Vaughn?
Yes.
Trustee Antonetts?
Yes, motion passed.
Lance, if you'll come up and take the oath of officer. And step over with the fiscal officer. Do you guys stand like that? Give a little better shot for the pictures for family. Thank you. There you go.
The duties of police officer in Genoa Township, Delaware County, State of Ohio, during the continuance of my employment. So help me God. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right, Lance, so it's tradition at Genoa Township that we do a badge pinning. Do you
Yes,
have
sir.
somebody from your family here that you'd like to?
My wife Morgan.
Marty? No pressure.
Third time's
It's always so scary.
It's all right. Yep, perfect. Just like that.
And Lance, do you have anybody you'd like to introduce tonight?
Yeah, so I have
Before-
my.
Gotta take the microphone.
Oh,
sir.
I do? Okay.
I'll take the microphone.
So I have my beautiful wife Morgan with me. Behind her, I have my father Shannon. I have my mom Sarah, who is holding my son Stetson. My youngest brother Landon and his fiancee Maddie. And then behind them, I have my in-laws. I have my mother-in-law Tracy, who is holding my beautiful daughter Rowan, and then my father-in-law Joe.
So, back at the station, if you guys want to hang out a little bit and say hello, there's some refreshments back at the police station. Otherwise, you can sit here and talk about roads and ditches with us.
Roads and ditches.
Yeah.
It's riveting stuff.
You got Lauren.
I'm always appreciative. Or we can talk about appropriations and seconds for me. Forgetting to do this stuff in January so I can come back in March. See, I'm teaching them well.
Nice, okay. Fiscal officer report.
Yes, sir. Two things, or more than two things, two sets of minutes, I'm sorry. I would ask you to approve the February 11th, 2025 regular trustee meeting minutes and the March 3rd, 2025 special trustee meeting.
Okay, I move to approve the following trustee meeting minutes. February 11th, 2025 regular meeting, March 3rd, 2025 special meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Favor?
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Antoinette?
Yes, motion passed.
I have two sets of bank statements for your reconciliation, both reconciled. So I'll have both of them for your signature at the end. I will provide you the balances as of February, no sense in going back to January. Current balance, $20,084,105.05. And that's a primary account of $30,231.05. Investments account of $19,796,408.52, and the Star Ohio account of $257,465.48. And when you sign that, you can put your name once and put a line down it like you see me. Make it easier on you. Next, a little bit of an audit update. So the 2023-2024 biannual audit is underway. They contacted myself and Donna asking for some documentation that Donna's began to provide them. And then they'll be on site for 3 days, correct? And then who knows how long before we get it back, but we'll keep you informed as we know more. Unlike a lot of townships, we bring them in. We're fine with it. We've never had any issues, and we don't foresee having any issues this time. So if you guys have any questions about that, let me know. And lastly, we have a purchase order, a then and now purchase order to ProCare PBM in the amount of $15,351.11, and it's for expenses for pharmaceuticals expenses.
Okay, I move to approve a then and now purchase order to ProCare PBM in the amount of $15,351.11 for prescription expenses. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? None?
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Antoinette?
Yes. Motion passed.
That's all I have. I do have a couple of things I want to grab your signatures on before we leave tonight, so I'll give them to you. Other than that, I'm done.
All right, thanks, Pat. Next on the agenda is public comment. Anyone wishing to make public comment, please come up, state your name and address.
Okay, my name is Bill Anders, 3501 Sunbury Road, Galena, 43021. Been around the township for 46 years, a resident. Anybody beating me? Okay, well, I've seen tons of zoning and tons of this and tons of that and all the arguments as this place grew. So when I'm saying a lot of this stuff, I really do look back and I have a pretty good idea of what, you know, what I see as There have been good changes and bad changes, things that aren't simply being done at all. So after a nice swearing in like that, I hate to be a negative person, but I will if you don't mind. We're talking changing our zoning code around, right? And this omnibus and all this other good stuff they say. But all the paper you guys have in your desk about the zoning are worth nothing if you don't have proper enforcement and a proper zoning department. And what I've seen in the last few years, since I got a little more back involved in the township again, is that we don't have enforcement. We lack so many things we're doing wrong. And now we're going to adopt a new code that the one person that's head of the zoning department has made almost all the changes on. When I've looked at the code and all the stuff that's scratched out in the old one for the new one, it's like a total rewrite. This isn't just a modification. This is a total rewrite. And some of the things that you see in this total rewrite, what the tough topics are they're having are, a second here, because this is nothing like it's really there. You're going to this is out from Joe Township. Legal consistency. Existing resolution is silent, contrary to new laws, blah, blah, blah. Enhancements, matters not currently addressed or in need of improvement. I guess the whole code's bad. Moving philosophies and regulations of the 21st century. So we're really antiquated. Usability, an approach that is sensible, blah, 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 practical, versatile. Clarification, sounds like a social do-gooder thing. Misunderstood regulations, loopholes, inconsistencies. By the way, I've generally seen the zoning department makes most of these inconsistencies because they interpret things. First off, they interpret the code and they use their own interpretation when they apply it, rather than the code is the code. You don't have the right to change how it's written. Administrative cleanup and all this good stuff. I don't think that's really the purpose of this big omnibus thing. Has been more of an editing thing. It comes across, if you're just a Genoa Township citizen, that we're doing a little editing in this Consolidated Omnibus Act, but it's a lot more than that when you actually get into it. And I wish I was a little less sick and I could spend all the time and give you guys my real detailed thing. Now, let me just say this. Declaration of Independence, who wrote it? Thomas Jefferson, right? And he was a well-respected guy, and he wrote it, and they knew he was well-versed in that language. James Madison, our fourth president, he was the father of the Constitution. He wrote all of it, and he was recognized as being just so much above everybody else. So when he wrote this Constitution and we approved it, it's still good 250 years later. Amazing document. You know, the code is here true. If we don't do the thing correctly and enforce it correctly, it's worthless. And that's what I'm seeing here is that you have doesn't matter. We got to get. I mean, you'll see some of the stuff. I'm just going to mention a few items here, and try not to be duplicative, right? But first thing, what I see in the BZA and the zoning board is not a lot of intelligence. And I was on the BZA at one time, and I was real involved in the zoning that was going on in Genoa and everything. And there was a lot of intelligent people that were on those boards, and they really educated themselves. I remember going a lot of times to the second floor of Bunn's Restaurant before it burned down, and Duncan Whitney, the county prosecutor, was doing continuing education things. I went there at least twice a year for his stuff, and it was interesting. But you know what? When I was there, it seemed like everybody from all the zoning boards and all the townships were there too. It was a well-attended item. I'm talking one of the head zoning guys in another township here in Delaware County. He said they really can't tell the people they're hiring that they have to come to the meetings, they have to get themselves educated. But he said they strongly put in things and tell them that they're strongly being urged to be educated, to take advantage of all these things. And the township really follows up to try to get the people to there so we have educated boards and not what we have right now. Right now it's not real good. Let's see. One of the zoning guys I talked to, this was like an hour and 5-minute conversation. It wasn't like he was shortchanging me. He wanted to provide all this information for me. I thought, well, that's good. But he says he goes a different way to and from work every day when he drives through the township, so he can basically do drive-bys and do inspections, see what's going on himself. And he said, I cover the whole township every week just by doing drive-bys when I go to and from work. We aren't doing that right now. What could be worse? You're building Armenian estates, and all of a sudden they discover it's being built, after it's halfway up, you know. That kind of thing happens. Let's see here. The one thing of talking about hardship, giving a variance for hardships. Hardship, everybody, when I asked them about how they judge the hardship, everybody said, can have a created hardship. So in other words, some of the things I've seen in the BZA, a lady wants to have her pool bigger, so it's closer to the sideline of her property, and this is a huge pool they're putting in their backyard. But she wanted to have it just this side because she really, really wanted it so much, so she's applying for a variance to our code. Code says you gotta be so far from the property line with your pool. That's it. There's no real hardship here. Mirror pool is gonna be 1 foot narrower. But that's a created hardship. A fellow has all these little 2-car garages all over his rural residential property. And he wants to keep his antique cars and his car collections and all these things on his property. So he wanted to be covering more land than he should have and build more of these things than the code says for. So should he get a variance to build an extra one to put on there? What's the hardship? You know, just more convenient, I guess, the thing is there. By the way, those were both approved. Somebody says that this, even though it's a rural residential area, and this is an old grandfathered zoning thing, he wants to build a building for, to store stuff in. You know, actually, there's not a bit of junk outside the property. It's all, right now, it's all stored inside. He actually wanted a building for another reason. But what happens is that the neighbor has had trouble with this fellow for years, and some other neighbors in that immediate area there. The police department have records on all this, by the way, because they've been out there so often. He objected to it. He didn't really want, though, to be targeted again because it caused another World War III over there for him and his family. So he goes to the zoning department. The zoning department goes and looks at it and goes, yeah, this is a building that's going up that doesn't even have a permit or anything drawn. It's certainly controversial. But the zoning board knows that just to keep the fellow's name quiet and not make it real broad because he doesn't want to start World War III. But he's upset, and the zoning board knows he's upset. Okay? When it comes to the BZA time, one of the BZA guys says, well, I guess nobody else really is more concerned. I was there. Nobody else shows up. Frankly, it's been part of the reason is because what occurred a few years ago with the Connie Carl thing and changing our zoning around. People around here have lost total faith. People around Hall Sheet Metal Shop have lost total faith. There's a lot of faith that's been lost in the township. And people around here just want to know more information about Booth's General Store becoming something else, you know. I said, why don't you show up? I used to live right over here. Why don't you show up and ask the questions and take a look and see what's going on? They said, we have lost so much faith in the township and everything that we didn't even want to come up. As soon as my kids are through high school, we're moving. I mean, we've lost the credibility we need as a township. So the guy from the BZA, one of the board members sits there, he said, well, Bill lives a mile away, so if he's here talking about this, he doesn't know, he really doesn't count because he's a mile away. What happened to the immediate next door neighbor? What happened to him? How come he isn't here? The fact he's not here probably means, he said this, it wasn't led. Why, he said, it must mean that he's not upset about it, because otherwise he'd be here wanting to complain about this building that he's gonna look out his window and it's gonna be sticking up right in his face. And that's not true. The guy just didn't want to come. I talked to him right after the meeting too. He didn't want to come because they didn't want to start World War III again. And while you're sitting there giving people all the benefit of the doubt, I talked against them putting another building up in a real limited use, a real residential, to be a commercial structure. And I talked about it and talked about the history of it. Now, the owner didn't probably like me saying that because he was leaving after the hearing's over. He says to me, I'll quote unquote, now I know where you live. And I say, is that a threat? And he goes, no, it's a promise. So I come right up to the BZA guy, Board of Zoning Appeals guy, sat up here and said, did you hear what just happened there? He threatened me because I think everything he said was 100% true. He's threatening me and throwing his weight around and ready to cause another fight. And so I called the police out to my home that night, and they came out and told me all kinds of other stuff I never even knew. I say that because sometimes we give somebody coming in on the BZA especially every break in the book and find a way to, for example, not take a man-made hardship. You want your pool to be 1 foot wider. and we make it a reason to give them a variance, but an extra building for cars. Let's give a variance and get too much land being developed. Or in this case, a place to store your boat, and that's why you really want up to, there's nothing being stored outside. And that just goes on and on and on. Mark, that's enough of those examinations, but it's true. This stuff is not hardship. You know, the code says, but the code has to be the final discerner here. And it's not been. For example, recently in a meeting I was at, they were talking about the height of the buildings. And right now our code says the height of a residential should be 35 feet, right? And Joe Schaefer says in the meeting, with one of the county assistant prosecutors present, he said, well, what I've been doing is I take like the height of, there's 2 or 3 other roof lines over the garage or different places in the house. I take those and I average them together. And that's where I determine if it's over 35 feet or not. The code doesn't say you average them together. The code says this is 35 feet. The tall part of the house is 35 feet tall. And anything past that is against code. Yet he arbitrarily took it upon himself to use some other technique to do it. And the code is not the official item. It's almost you can reason away all the reasons that they should or shouldn't do it. Almost 90% plus the time, the variance is granted, and it goes on and on. The people aren't educated. Our zoning department will generally lead the discussion, and will lead the discussion. And the other zoning guys I talked to told me that they don't do that. They try to keep themselves as far away from it as they can and not give their opinion. Exactly the opposite occurs here. I'll get through this real quick here. Okay, going on someone else's property. It's a sensitive issue. Most of the townships around here now, on their application, they have a place where you would agree that people can come onto your property to inspect their certain things, and it refers to the code right in the application. So somebody agrees ahead of time that somebody can come on and make sure the foundation that's being put down isn't too close to the sideline or something, or the back property line. Current zoning people, that's against law. You can't trespass. This wall that was built in Armenian Estates, it's 11 feet high going all along the road. Almost 160 feet of 11-foot high wall. Imagine, built without the code. And even though the zoning department knew about it, because I had talked to him, his friends coming up to visit me because I'm stuck in a wheelchair and stuff, they were saying, what's that going on in, what's that going on in, there, what's going on? It looks ridiculous because they see these big houses being built in the back and everything. And,
Hey, Bill, if I could
Yep.
interrupt for a second. I really appreciate you taking time out of your evening. I respect everything you're talking about, but if we're going to make any progress in here, we're not going to be able to do it here. So I would strongly suggest you provide a written, bulleted, short, brief items of your concern that we can address, because we can't do it here in this open meeting. I need specifics about what your concerns are so I can address them. Not anecdote stories.
well,
I need
I'm just
real
saying things that,
specific information.
the fact our zoning code isn't even used, it's used and arbitrarily
I get it.
interpreted.
I understand.
And it goes on and on and on.
I understand.
Hey,
And
one
remember-
last bullet I'll give you, and I'll shut up, okay?
One more.
When I'm talking about people going on, the zoning guys going on someone's property to see exactly where this outbuilding is being built, make sure it's not being built too close to the property lines. Or they want to do a footer inspection. They're telling me that they have no pushback on doing that, and that the people are just very happy to do it with them, and they'll put down flags where the footer is going to be, say, for this ancillary building on the property, and they have no problem. We are like, even though you see this thing going up, it's against the code, we can't touch it. We might be trespassing, we can't go on there and do a footer inspection. Or, for example, if something's already being built and you find out about it, what the other folks are doing is they're going to the county building department in Delaware, and they put a stop work order on, because they don't have a zoning thing that they've applied for. When they go there, and somehow, a lot of times Delaware lets them go ahead and build, I guess. They never have the zoning thing. But they do something about it. They put a stop work order on the thing. We don't. We just let it go. We have great code, but if you don't enforce it, And I hope the code's being written correctly, because I don't see the applicable things being done right now in the current code on all the stuff that seems to come up all the time. And I don't think we should be having one man write a code, which is about whatever, and he's the authority. And the reason I just came to you guys, you can't go to the zoning board and talk to them. They don't care. You guys are the ones that make the decision, you three, you know. And so it's sort of like it just kept, this thing just kept going on and on. You sit in the meeting and a few things were mentioned and it just doesn't end. So I'll give you the bullets on this. But I wanted to get 3 people together and maybe other people in the township involved that, do you really know what's going on? You could not know if you're going to the zoning meetings and they talk about the changing the code around, you don't know what half they're talking about. And these are so nebulous things they state, but the code, look at the code, it's been scratched out, it's been destroyed.
All right,
So,
just for
okay,
clarification.
and I'll shut up.
We
but-
rely on Joe's experience and expertise to be able to work with the commission in making changes to the code. Ultimately, the code revisions come to us, and we haven't seen them yet. So if you can provide your input prior to us hearing it, it would be helpful. If you do provide a written item, bulleted item of your concerns, I personally will address them. But you need to do that, not
Appreciate
here.
that. Well, okay, the problem I have is I've been seeing things addressed at the commission, it's always so nebulous and up in the air, and nobody could come out of that meeting with any kind of understanding of what's going on.
I hear you.
So I'm just trying to be specific. All I have is trouble item after trouble after trouble item, you know? And I got one, I got to tell you this. The guy is, here's the BZA sitting there. One of the guys in the BZA says, well, this other fellow would be here. So the fact he isn't here, that means something. And he probably doesn't care that if it's done or not. Now here is Joe Schaefer and the Dorsch girl, and they're sitting here, and he's saying that. They knew that the immediate next door neighbor was the one that brought that to the department's attention and was real upset about it. The guy in the BZA doesn't know he's using some kind of illogical assumption, but he's saying it. You'd think they would correct the record because he was upset about it. He's the one that initially bought it. But guess what happens? Nothing said. The BZA sits there and goes and approves this, I'll say almost like illegal use of residential, rural residential zoning for a commercial building. And they don't never interrupt. It's like if they'll find any way they can, it just goes on and on and on. But everybody, they knew it. The zoning department knew it, and they did ignore it and didn't even bother telling the BZA about it.
All right, so again, if you could, I would ask that you provide that somewhere in writing.
I will.
And, you know, Bill and I spoke this today on the phone, and you know, I'm willing to meet with you before this comes to us. So keep making your list. I'm happy to sit down with you.
Okay, now, can I meet the two of you guys? What's the rules to
No,
avoid the sunshine
You can meet
law?
with each of us separate.
Separate or together?
Nope,
Not together.
not together.
But that's fine. You can meet with trustee Vaughn, and then if you want to follow up with me, that's fine. Or you just submit your information to me in writing, that's fine.
Yep, however you want to do it.
But do it before we review this change in the zoning code, okay?
I will. At least I hope I started something going. People are be a little more discerning what's going on, because it's not good.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks a lot.
Bill, one of the things is, as you put together this document that you're sending, the bullet list, that document without discussion can come to all 3 of us.
Yep.
To keep us all informed. But the discussion cannot include more than 1 trustee.
Yes.
The personal discussion.
Well, tonight I want all 3 together, rather than
So we all
getting
know.
getting Renee's ear when all these I see is crap going on, and it shouldn't be happening. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what the paper says here on your desk. If it's not enforced correctly, if it's not followed up, if you can't, you make reasons you can't go out and inspect it or do a little tour of the township and see what violations are going on. If you don't do that, the code is worthless. Might as well just throw it out the window.
Thanks.
Thanks.
You got like 30 seconds because he used all your time.
Bill said everything I was going to say. Rick Whelan, 9500 Britton Woods Drive. Bill's brought up a good point, and I brought this stuff up in the past too, so we don't need to spend too much time on it, but we're coming to a crossroads on some stuff here. We'll have a list of stuff put together, but the list is getting out of control. And the list seems to only be coming from a couple residents from the township. I've been to all the zoning meetings, the BZA meetings. Normally, I'm the only one there. We don't have any participation from anybody else, it seems like. And Bill made up a good point that a lot of residents are just disgruntled with the system. Their voices aren't heard, things get put away, and they're just getting lost in the stream, that type of business. We have a beautiful township. I myself have only been here going on, 3 years now or whatever and stuff. But from what I see, and I drive through Harlem Township and stuff a lot of times, I see a lot of zoning violations in Harlem Township. I drive around our township, and I'm surprised on the ones that I see in our township also. I'll bring it to your attention. Mark, I sent you one this week or whatever for you to review. I was hoping you could have got back to me before the meeting on it so we could have discussed something. But these are the things that are coming up, and this is the stuff that we need to address with our zoning and our zoning staff and our zoning inspector, because things are getting missed on this stuff. And once they get missed, then it compounds it and stuff for us. I was at the zoning commission, I'd like to see, and ask the chairman to have a meeting outside the commission for some of the people in the township, instead of 3 minutes that he allows you to speak at the meeting. And it's always public comment at the beginning, and then you have to sit there and listen to them discuss everything, and he doesn't offer any public comment after the discussions. So we got to come back at the next meeting to address things that they brought up at that meeting. It doesn't work. You can't get any communication that way on stuff. There's no invitations to bring anybody else in on any of this stuff. I've stated before that I think our boards need some training on this stuff. They need some education. I have not had any feedback on that yet as far as stuff goes. At some of the trustee meetings on the hearings and stuff on the zoning stuff, we've got residents that are telling trustees, oh, this will be done, that'll be done. Within 2 or 3 days, the trustees believe them, accept the application, thank them for being such a good steward in the township. I drive by the facility a week later and the tires are still there. I bring it to the trustees' notification, and I don't know if anything's been done about it again. There's a car for sale down on Old State Road. Guy just put a pickup truck, I think it's an old Bronco or something, in his front yard down there. There's no license plates on it. It's been sitting there for about 2 days that I know of. I drove by it on my way to the meeting tonight. I took a picture of it. I don't know if anybody from our zoning department has visualized it yet and taken a picture of an unlicensed vehicle sitting in the front yard for sale. That's against our code if it's there over 7 days. Right now, I don't know how long it's been there. I don't know how long Joe Schaefer knows it's been there. It's his job to pick up on this stuff. It'd be another job for our police department guys driving around, if they see a violation like this, to take a picture of it, send it to Joe, say, hey, this is going on over here, keep an eye on it. I don't know if that's happening in our township. We need a little bit more from everybody for this stuff. I'm surprised at just how much I see when I'm driving around that could be helped out. I put a call into the guys over at the junkyard over there on Harlem Road. Just ask them and see if I think he's got a tow truck and stuff over there, and he'd be happy to help pick some of this stuff up if residents need it done. Because a lot of times you have residents that don't have the capacities to do this stuff. You know, the old truck sits there year after year after year, and nobody calls on it. I've turned in 2 or 3 of them. I've got 4 or 5 more of them that I found out within probably a quarter-mile radius of this building. We don't have anybody in our department going out doing this stuff. I don't know why it is that way. If we want residents just to go on, because if we keep this stuff up, then we're just going to get more and more, sites that are going to have more cars on them, more trash, more tires out beside the buildings. Our zoning needs to approach this stuff, that if you're going to store tires outside a facility, keep them covered so they don't get full of water and breed mosquitoes or anything else type of business until they get picked up. But don't lie to our trustees that they're going to get picked up 3 days and then they're still sitting there for another week, and I'm the only one that drives by to catch us. The zoning department didn't go by and catch this stuff. The hole in the fence is still there that they brought up. And this goes on week after week. So we need some due diligence on this stuff. I know we've got the rewrite of the zoning stuff. We'll put together a whole packet on that stuff. That's going to be hard to go over in 1 or 2 meetings, as much stuff as intensive that they have in there. And at the zoning board, when I'm there, these guys are glancing over sections in the zoning stuff that I've brought up to them 2 months before. So they're doing their review, and I'm sitting in the audience, and they go right past the whole section, don't even bring up the questions that I posed to them. So I don't know what's going on here.
All right, so I would suggest the same thing I suggested, Mr. Andrews, is bring those items to us in writing. Clearly define what your issues are so we can address them before we adopt the revisions to the code,
All righty.
right?
Yep.
Thank you.
Can you get back to me on that one that I got to you then, or do you want me, do you need more information on that, or?
No, I don't need it.
All right, thanks. All right, thank you, guys.
Thanks, Rick.
Okay. Trustee comment?
Yeah, I have a couple things. I want to thank Genoa Township, specifically our fiscal office, because I was contacted by OTA to make some phone calls yesterday for townships who did not report their 2023 expenditures in 2024 for the ARPA money. Yes, yes. So if townships haven't, by the end of this month, they have to give the money back. So we weren't on the list, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that, because we liked our ARPA money. Also, the Delaware County Township Association is meeting on Thursday, and Delco Water will be presenting, but I just want to tip residents off that your May water bill will look different. Delco is restructuring their billing, the way they bill, and it's based on usage. So the base fee is the same for everybody, but based on the amount that you use, you are billed at a higher rate based on, the more, basically the more water you use, the higher your bill is going to be, and it will go up fast. And then also, I just want to state that I am opposed to Senator Brenner's Senate Bill 104. It's supposed to take away townships' ability to regulate short-term rentals, Airbnbs, whatever. I just think this is another way that our representatives at the state are trying to take away townships' authority. We already don't have a whole lot of authority anyway. In regards to all these zoning violations, it's difficult for townships to deal with zoning violations with the Township Omnibus Bill 315 that was just passed at the end of 2024. It made it a little easier, but it's still very difficult for townships to deal with zoning. And I'll just remind residents that Brenner was the one who supported the increasing the referendum signatures that was increased last year to 15%, and it used to be 8%. He was pushing for 25%. So I just want to put that on the record that residents need to be looking at what's happening at the State House, and that's one thing that's happening right now. I hope this bill dies. That's all I have.
Thank you. We're lucky to have you on the OTA. We wouldn't know most of this information. Trustee Goodman?
I just want to piggyback on one comment you made in regards to Delco Water. Yeah, water rates are changing. They also have changed or upgraded their system and done some stuff. But anyway, the bottom line is every consumer's account number has changed.
Yep.
So if you're someone that pays your bill through your bank, be sure that you go in and update your account number so that you are appropriately credited. And it takes, at my bank, it took 24 hours, so don't try to pay it the same day, too. But just make sure that you have the updated account numbers.
Very good. Thank you for saying that. I forgot.
Nothing further? Paul?
Thank you. Out of concern for the Board of Trustees and the Delco bill, I've scheduled Glenn Marsloff to be at our April meeting to discuss the new billing.
Perfect.
Thank you. I've telegraphically sent it to him. So first up, I have an update for the Board of Trustees. Recently, we had the short annual TIF meeting of the township. We have a tax improvement council that meets once a year for about 5 minutes. And basically, in 1995, the Board of Trustees passed a resolution in December of that year that began a TIF in the area of the Northgate Plaza. That original TIF agreement went 20 years, and the board renewed it again for another 10 years. So according to our legal counsel, Peter Griggs, the TIF will be expiring at the end of 2026. And so at the meeting in 2027 in March, the annual TIF meeting, it'll be officially recommended to be closed. So any money left in the TIF at that point will be transferred over to the general fund. So the lion's share of our distributions right now go to pay back the Westerville School District. Just wanted to give the board a highlight on that. Secondly, you have in your materials a resolution that the Ohio Township Association asked townships to pass if you're in favor of the renewal of the Issue 2 money. That's the state capital improvement program. It's up for the voters in May at the May 6th ballot for what you might watch on the ballot. I just want to let voters know that Genoa Township applies for funding every cycle, and we're usually awarded every 2 years. And so just to highlight, in the past decade or so, we've been awarded Medallion Drive West, Medallion Drive East, Mount Royal Avenue, Highland Lakes Avenue, and recently this year we received the western side of Big Walnut Road. So these are funds that the township uses currently and a lot. And I ask the board that you pass a resolution in support of that this evening.
I move to pass a resolution in support of State Issue 2 renewal of the State Capital Improvement Program on May 6, 2025 statewide ballot as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? None?
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Antoinette?
Yes. Motion passed.
Thank you. That's all I have.
That's all? Wow. Police, chief?
Good evening again, Board. The first item I have on the agenda is going to request an appropriation amendment for Enterprise. I had mentioned a couple of meetings ago at a reorg that I was working with Enterprise to finish up some of the billing or payment shortages for our 2 police vehicles. What ended up happening was after we got our new vehicles, sold the vehicles that we had in our fleet, they sold for a lot less than Enterprise initially had anticipated. So we needed to come back and make up that money, and we're doing so now. So tonight, my first line item is to request a resolution for the board for a supplemental appropriation amendment for the police vehicles for the amount of $22,360.19.
Okay, I move to approve the following supplemental appropriation amendment. From the Police Fund 2191-930-930-000 to 2191-760-750-0000 in the amount of $22,360.19. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll?
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn? Yes. Mr. Antoinette?
Motion passed.
Thank you. And then the second part to that is I will request a then and now purchase order to Enterprise in the same amount to finalize that payment for the Dodge Durango.
I move to approve a then and now purchase order to Enterprise Fleet in the amount of $22,360.19 for a 2024 Dodge Durango for the police department. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Antoinette?
Yes. Motion passed.
Thank you. And then that'll finalize our payments with Enterprise, which will allow the administrator to sign the paperwork to terminate our business with Enterprise moving forward, once they receive that payment. The next item I have is in the January reorganization meeting, I earmarked some money to be transferred into our capital projects fund for vehicles and some large ticket items. Tonight, I respectfully request the following 2025 permanent appropriation be transferred to the capital fund in the amount of $120,000.
I move to approve the following, the 2025 permanent appropriations, police capital project funds, capital outlay in the amount of $120,000. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? None?
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Antoinette?
Yes. Motion passed.
Tonight, I request the board accept Kimberly Allen's resignation.
I move to accept the resignation of full-time Police Department Administrative Assistant Kimberly Allen, effective February 24th, 2025. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Antoinette?
Yes.
Police Officer Antonio Carter also resigned recently, and I request the board to accept his resignation.
I move to accept the resignation of full-time Police Officer Antonio Carter, effective February 21st, 2025. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? None?
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Mr. Antoinette?
Yes.
Keep me on my toes. Call me first.
Yeah. Jumping around. Last year, we took some time to evaluate the needs within the department. When we had Detective Mike Riley resign, we did not immediately backfill that position. We wanted to see if we could utilize our resources better in different places. After evaluating it for the course of that year, the team and I decided that with the detectives having to be on call and the caseload, it just wasn't practical to try to keep that with one detective, even with the sergeant helping out. So when we did our internal shift bids and essentially our reorganization, I moved Officer Carissa Webb to the Detective Bureau with the classification of detective, and the administrative sergeant, Mike Sigmund, reclassified him to the position of detective sergeant. He had been doing the work anyway, and it just made more sense to put him in line with the work that he's already been doing. After some discussion at the department head meetings with HR, we thought it was best, even though the contract states that I can make the moves, we felt that it was probably best to take it to a public meeting and let the board know so we can memorialize it. So that's what I'm going to ask for tonight, and why I'm asking for it to be backdated to January when we redid our shift bids and I moved them around. So the first motion, or the first request that I would make, is that the board approve the reclassification of Police Officer Carissa Webb to Police Detective effective January 1st, 2025.
I move to approve the reclassification of Police Officer Carissa Webb to Police Detective, effective January 1st, 2025. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? None?
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Antoinette?
Yes. Motion passed.
Thank you. And then the second request would be to approve the reclassification of Police Sergeant Mike Sigmund to Police Detective Sergeant effective the January 1st, 2025.
I move to approve the reclassification of Police Sergeant Michael Sigmund to Police Detective Sergeant effective January 1st, 2025. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Antoinette?
Motion passed, yes.
And I have one last item on the agenda. Recently, while two officers were out on patrol, they came back to their police cars. They were at separate times, separate locations, over a course of about 24 hours, came back to their police cars, and they found cards stuck under their windshield wiper. They got the cards and opened them later that evening to find each one had $100 in each card. And the cards were handwritten that said, "Since we missed you over the holidays, we still wanted to thank you," and they were signed by a Mike and Nancy Butler. The officers never saw who put them under the cards. They were done anonymously with the exception of those signatures. So tonight, I would respectfully request the board graciously accept a donation in the amount of $200 from cards signed by Mike and Nancy Butler.
I move to graciously accept a donation from Mike and Nancy Butler in the amount of $200 for the Genoa Township Police Department. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? I guess I would like to personally thank the Butlers. I think it's a testament to our police force, the respect that they get and appreciation. It's very generous of them.
It was a very pleasant surprise for them to just walk back out and cards with a donation stuck on them. So it was humbling.
Yeah. Okay, roll.
Ms. Goodman? Yes. Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Antoinette?
Motion passed.
That was the last item on my agenda. Thank you, board, for sticking with me.
Thanks, Chief. Fire?
Thank you. Good evening. First, I just want to make the board aware of an incident that we responded to earlier this morning. A little after 11 o'clock this morning, our crews were dispatched to Hoover Reservoir for a report of a person in the water. While they were en route, we got information that there had been 2 people in the water. One fortunately was able to get back into their kayak. Unfortunately, the other individual, their kayak sunk, so they were forced to cling to the other individual's kayak. Neither one of them, unfortunately, neither one of them were wearing life jackets, but fortunately, our crews responded in our boat, were able to get them out of the water, bring them back to the shore where they were transported to the hospital. They were in 41-degree water for probably over a half an hour, it sounds like. So we just want to continue to urge our residents and visitors to wear your life jackets when you're out on the water. First item, request a resolution to accept the resignation of full-time firefighter paramedic Aaron Upchurch effective March 14th, 2025.
I move to accept the resignation of full-time firefighter / paramedic Aaron Upchurch effective March 14th, 2025. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll.
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Antoinette?
Yes. Motion passed.
Thank you. Second is a resolution, request a resolution to approve a purchase order to Brindley Mountain Fire Apparatus in the amount of $18,750. They are our broker. This would be for the sale of our 2007 Suffin truck.
I move to approve a purchase order to Brindley Mountain Fire Apparatus LLC in the amount of $18,750 for the sale of the old fire department truck number 441. Do I have a second?
Second?
Discussion? I have a question. Can you explain a little bit about this? It's a purchase order, but it's from the sale?
It's from so this is for the broker.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Okay,
It's a broker's fee.
yes.
Okay. That's all.
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Antoinette?
Yes. Motion passed.
And finally is a donation agreement to the Delaware Area Career Center. It's for our outdated self-contained breathing apparatus and some miscellaneous equipment that went with it, the masks, some voice amplifiers. These SCBAs have been replaced earlier in the year with new SCBAs that we received through grant funding last year. Because we received these by grants, we can't do anything with them, sell them or anything along those lines. So our best course of action is to donate them to the Career Center. So request an authorization to donate those to the Delaware Area Career Center.
I move to approve the donation agreement with the Delaware Area Career Center for the donation of self-contained breathing apparatus and other firefighting equipment approved in Resolution 25-0211-016. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I just want to thank you for your department for working on the contract, making sure that there's the disclaimers on here so that there's no responsibility to the township should something happen. That's very important.
Yes, great point. Roll.
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Antoinette?
Yes, motion passed.
Thank you.
No further business. I have several announcements. March 13th, Communication Advisory Committee meeting. March 15th, Coffee with the Cop. March 18th, where is that going to be? Here? Police station. March 18th, Board of Zoning Appeals. April 2nd, Parks Advisory Committee. April 5th, Cram a Cruiser. April 5th, again, Fire Station Tour and Levy Discussion. And the next regular meeting will be Tuesday, April 8th, 2025. No more business come before the board. I move to adjourn at 7:23. Do I have a second?
Second?
Discussion?
Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Antoinette?
Yes. Meeting adjourned.